How many of you have direct interaction with upper management? As an engineer or developer, you probably know engineers and developers. Plus, you're paying attention to the technical details and keeping up with technical advances. So, what is it that upper management's paying attention to? Let's do something a little different. Let's treat this like a one-on-one or Q&A session. As an engineer or developer, what would you like to ask upper management? And leave me your question in the comment section. These are some of the questions that I get asked on a regular basis. What exactly is my role, or what am I responsible for? As Director of Software Engineering and Systems Development, I'm responsible for all things development. There are a few examples, but for the most part, I'm responsible for the trajectory for all development. That means it's up to me to create the vision and to drive our teams to get there. What does my organization look like? My organization is made up of 3 distinct pillars: development, DevOps, and development support. When I first took over the role, essentially I had one large development group, and this had worked in the past, but it wasn't going to work for where I wanted to take my organization. So we reorganized to create 3 distinct pillars, and doing so allowed me to move much faster. So when I said I had one large development group, this meant that we worked in a more old school fashion, more like a mom and pop shop. People would email developers directly, developers would make changes and copy code to servers, clients or business partners would call us and create fire drills on our side. It was organized chaos. And let's be honest, if we have one large team moving in the same direction, normally they can only conquer one thing at a time. So I decided to break the development group down into those 3 teams, and now those 3 teams could each focus on one thing at a time. So while we continue to have the same number of people overall, we could focus on 3 different things at one time, i.e., move 3 times faster. So specifically, what this meant was the DevOps team began building automated CI/CD pipelines. This is its whole endeavor. The development support team could focus on third-level support and advanced troubleshooting, leaving the developers to focus on development. Prior to this, the developers were involved in everything: developing the code, troubleshooting, deploying, and so far this experiment has worked. Our DevOps team has been able to build several CI/CD pipelines which ensure consistent builds from environment to environment. Furthermore, they've been able to provide self-service automations which reduce their workloads while improving delivery to clients. Our developer support teams have been able to maintain our systems, but also as the entry point from our clients, they're able to see these repetitive type issues. So they can relay that information to our DevOps team for automation or to our developers for a bug fix. And finally, the developers are able to focus on what they do best: develop. What's my toughest day-to-day task? I'm sure everyone's going to say probably keeping up with the technology or dealing with people or something like that. But truthfully, my toughest task is keeping up with my inbox and my calendar. I probably get 1,000 emails a day, and my calendar is chock full of back-to-back-to-back meetings. I feel like I'm on the phone all day long, and it's definitely difficult to get things done when you're bouncing from one meeting to the next. What advice would I give new college graduates that want to get into technology management? Everyone knows that managers manage people, and people are the most important resource for a manager. So naturally you think, okay, I need to work on my people skills. But hold on. And yes, people skills are important, but you can work on those anywhere, at home, at a restaurant, out with your friends. It's something you can do in your daily life. So I wouldn't tell you to focus on that. I would tell you to focus on technology. Spend the next 5 years or so learning the tech. Dig in. Learn the tech, work hard, learn more than everyone else around you. Become that person that seems to know everything about technology. And why do I say this? In my experience, the only way to lead is through respect. And the simplest way to get respect is to lead by example. If your people have confidence in your abilities and trust what you say, then you're going to be able to make great things happen. If your people don't have confidence, well, they don't have confidence. And it only takes one person to infect the team. Furthermore, if you know your stuff, it allows you to be stronger. It allows you to be fearless. It allows you to say no. How many times have you seen that manager crack under pressure or just do what their boss tells them to do? And if you're on that team, you're like, why would he agree to that? That's a terrible idea. And that right there will instantly cost you credibility with your team. And the goal isn't to just say no to an executive. At the end of the day, that executive needs to get X accomplished. If you can tell them a better way, a faster way to accomplish that goal, Why wouldn't he agree? But in order to be in a position to do that, you have to know your stuff. And once you know your stuff, then you can work on your people skills. Just because you're strong technically doesn't mean you want to rub everyone the wrong way. Will a master's degree help me land a high-paying job? I suppose that depends on the type of job that you're looking for. I tend to look at experience more than degrees. For example, if I see someone with 10 years of experience and a master's degree, then sure, I'll look at the resume. But if I see somebody with no experience and a master's degree, I'm not going to look at that resume. A master's degree with no experience tells me that they're several years behind other experienced candidates. No university in the world can keep up with technology. Where do I see technology heading? Technology is like everything else. There's ebbs and there's flows. Look at fashion, for example. People say things go in and out of style. And that's kind of the same with technology, except tech moves much, much faster. Everyone's focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning right now. ChatGPT, for example, has been everywhere. So for sure, I see this as an area of advancement. But I don't see ChatGPT replacing people. I see people that learn ChatGPT replacing people. What else? Cloud computing continues to push the envelope, but now cost constraints are forcing companies to rethink how they use the cloud. And in turn, this is forcing cloud providers to come up with simpler, more efficient services. You can think of this like Cloud 2.0, for example. Case in point, over the last several years, all everyone heard about was microservices, Kubernetes. This is the modern approach, completely distributed systems. It would make updating and adding features simpler, less risky. Companies could roll out these new features super fast as compared to the old days. Plus, there was no infrastructure to maintain, no more logging into servers. So this was a completely new way of working. But as this expanded, we started seeing more cracks. As great as this new modern system was, it wasn't as scalable as we originally thought. We found out that once you get past a certain point, you start facing diminishing returns. So Google, for example, why Amazon moved away from serverless. Amazon recently moved all of their Amazon Prime workloads away from serverless architecture. After doing so, they found out that their performance increased and their costs dropped drastically. And that's the opposite of what we all expected to happen. But it turns out that all these microservices ended up making all of these calls, pushing and pulling data back and forth to storage. And all these things cost money. So when you talk about a global operation, these costs add up. This forced Amazon to rethink their architecture to move away from a fully microserviced architecture to one that has services grouped together. You can think of this as the next evolution of microservices. Microservices were supposed to be the smallest piece that you could operate independently. And while that provides flexibility, it turned out to be less efficient than we thought. Now, instead of just breaking applications down into microservices, companies will want to look at the actual workflows. Maybe instead of breaking things down into, say, 5 microservices, maybe you group those 5 services together into one macro service. That reduces the number of services overall, which reduces the number of external processes, which in turn reduces cost. So I see serverless and microservices moving more toward macro services, which is a term I just made up, so let's see if it catches on. So these are some of the questions that I tend to get on a regular basis. The goal here at Digital Decision Makers is to give everyone access to upper management. Subscribe to the channel if you want access to a friend on the inside. And let me know in the comments if you like this Q&A format. Maybe I can respond to some of your questions on the next one.